Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael Mandillo, and you are here with Get On Board. This is our season 2 of this podcast, and we are absolutely thrilled and happy that we got the renewal for season 2. So, thank you for all of you for joining in season 1. We got a lot of great comments and some great feedback helping us into season 2 on the topics. A little bit different here. With this type of podcast is making it more conversational. We're gearing this towards what we like to believe our listeners and people who are attending these podcasts, which could range from people in the management side of the business, real estate as a whole, the vendors and professionals that work within the business, of course, residents, board members, committee members, all the above. We're trying to really hone in on topics that really reflect all of us and what we need and to do our jobs, not executive level players or just property managers. It could be from the accounting side. And again, like I said, different vendors and stuff of that nature. But we are hitting great topics. And today's an excellent topic. It really kind of is what I'll say the foundation of what makes people successful and organizations and properties successful. It's leadership. That's a broad statement. Leadership, what does that really mean? I have two phenomenal guests that are part of the First Service residential family, and they're going to be sharing their point of views as well as their experiences. We want this to be very authentic in a way where we have and will show some signs of vulnerability, things in our own careers that we have done where we made mistakes and learned from them. And we're hitting on a couple of really good topics under the leadership specifically. So let me bring on our guests and have them introduce themselves, and we'll get right into it. So again, thank you so much for being part, and we do appreciate your loyalty. First is Dave Callaway. So Dave, why don't you take a little time and introduce yourself, a little bit about your career path as well, and I'll pass it to you, Dave.
Oh, thank you, Michael, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is a great opportunity for us to all share on some great leadership stories and how our path has helped us to continually learn, even just today and yesterday on leadership and self-awareness. I have been with First Service for a little over 5 years now. And I came to First Service through the landscaping industry, where I ran a division in Virginia from a New Jersey-based company. And prior to that, I actually was in college athletics. In 1987, attended Monmouth University. I was a little skinnier back then, had a little more hair, and played basketball. And I was fortunate enough to have a basketball scholarship. And then stayed on and was an assistant coach in 1991, right after I graduated. And 6 years later, I was fortunate enough to become the head coach. I was 28 years old. I was the youngest head coach in the country. And 3 years later, shaking Mike Krzyzewski's hand of Duke as we played them in the first round of the NCAA tournament. So I had a whirlwind of learning on the job at a very young age of leadership that started way well before becoming a coach, but definitely thrown into the fire of Division I athletics, and that's helped prepared me the rest of my business life.
Awesome. And again, I think the background from Dave's point of view and his journey is really leadership has played a big part. So I think we're going to hear some really great stories and great thoughts from Dave. Jesse D Giovanni, welcome. And Jesse, would you like to share with our listeners a little background on yourself as well?
Yes, thank you, Michael. I'm actually so glad to be part of this podcast. It's obviously a topic that I'm really passionate about and talking about leadership. I knew you were going to ask me to introduce myself, and I had to really think about it because I'm not very good at, telling my history. So I really just like almost had to write it down and say, what have I done? And, I like David, I started in my career at a very, very young age. Um, Before I even got into human resources, and now as the VP of HR for First Service, I I started as a manager. I worked in a very, very large and popular newspaper in the metro area. And I was promoted at barely 20 years of age to manage the call center that supported the newspaper, and initially had a small team of about 40 or 50 folks in that department. And it was through that job that I discovered my passion for developing and for coaching others. And I wasn't one of those kids that graduated high school and went right to college. I did initially, and I got a scholarship, and I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. I mean, I couldn't have gone in a more polar opposite place than I did. But I dropped out and I started working. And I really just sort of stumbled upon human resources just because of the things that I enjoyed doing. So when I discovered that, I went back to college, and in my undergrad studied HR. In my master's, concentrated in HR, and just did the HR path that many people take. So I did recruiting, I was in training, did employee relations, did some compensation and benefits work, and then ended up in this sort of generalist role that I'm in now. But I'm really so grateful for my experiences, because my experience and the fact that I'm in a field that is in every single industry gave me a chance to try a lot of industries. So, I started way back when, as I mentioned, in the newspaper and publishing industry. And then I moved to hospitality and restaurants. I went from there into traditional retail. I did pharmaceutical retail. I went into e-commerce retail. I had a chance to work for really small companies. There were, under 500 employees, to really large companies. There were 50,000 employees. And I had a chance to go and work for private companies, founder-owned companies, which is a very different type of leadership that you have to have than anywhere else. And for really large public companies. I had a chance to take companies from private to public, and the opposite, from public to private. So I'll tell you that the experience of seeing leaders in different environments, under different challenges, in different industries, has really been probably part of the best part of my job, is just to see how it does need to change in different circumstances. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about this topic today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And thank you both. I think, just to give our listeners a background is important, because what's the credibility of someone's point of view? What experiences have they had through their journey of their career? So I think it's very, very helpful with that. And it sounds like we're going to have some really great point of views. Obviously, in the HR world, people are the most important thing, but leadership is people, and people are the most important thing. So let's get right into it, folks, with it. Top qualities of a leader, right? So we're going to start with you, Dave, if it's okay. If you would think through, from your point of view, maybe one or two, we don't have to go that deeper. Let's just pick one or two kind of top qualities you see that, or that you feel have been important in your leadership and working with other leaders who you've looked up to as mentors, as well as ones you were mentoring as well.
Yeah, Michael, and thank you. It's interesting listening to Jesse. I think as you grow as a leader, and I think back to my high school days, and as a high school athlete, and then a college athlete, and then a young college coach. Your leadership you develop at a young age from learning from others, and the leaders that you've gravitated to or were fortunate enough to learn from. And you pick up on a lot of great things that those leaders, the qualities that they have. And then you might even pick up on one or two that you realize that maybe they had a flaw or a mistake that they made, and you learn from that. And you, as you grow in your career, that's mistakes that you try to avoid or curve a little bit. If I consider, the qualities, at a younger age, it was, and as an athlete, the one that always came to mind was leading by example. And it was much easier as an athlete, to be honest with you, because you can go out and just perform an effort play and just go out and exercise. Maybe if you had some God-given talent and athleticism or skill set, and outwork people and just perform, right? As you grow in life, and the journey continues, especially as you get older, and then that athletic ability starts to go away. That's where I think the challenges come, that the real leadership is up in the mind, and the learned skills and lessons that you have there, to me, turn more into then the ability. And the two that hit me, it seems like the most, are the ability to listen, and that's an active listening of genuinely being in the moment and engaged and connected with whoever you're having a conversation with, whether it's someone you report to or someone reports to you, or even just a friendly conversation. You can always provide leadership with a friend. And then the empathy of really putting yourself into their shoes and really seeing it from their point of view. I think true leaders do a great job of that, and not necessarily, especially in moments when you do not necessarily agree with the point of view that person's coming from. But if you can put yourself in their shoes and see, hey, this is why they see it that way. Let me take a step back and look at it from their point of view, and let's have a really open and genuine and authentic conversation around that. And then we can come to some sort of decision. I think that's where I've grown as a leader the most, in particular, in my career.
Great, great, and definitely listening is a big factor in this leadership. A lot of people feel they have to have the answers. They cut people off. They try to finish what they think they're going to say. And great leaders really are patient and great listeners, and allowing those opportunities to absorb. So great on that end. Jesse, your thoughts on one or two qualities that you see?
Yeah, listen, there's just so many, right, to list, and it's hard to choose something in particular. But I think for me, it's more about what makes some leaders slightly different than others in terms of that quality that they have. And what I've learned is that leaders who have a really high tolerance for mistakes, and learn how to take a mistake and change it into an opportunity, to develop and teach and train through that, are probably one of the most successful leaders I see. The idea of maybe even a little bit letting your person go kind of down the path in which they
Mhm.
might make a mistake, if it isn't a risky mistake, and being able to take that and talk about that with your person and say, hey, look, I let's talk about the lessons that were learned from this mistake that you made, because there's such value in learning when you've done something the wrong way, or maybe in the not the
Mhm.
best way, and being able to turn that into an opportunity to learn. It sticks. So I think that's something that I see great leaders do. I think the other thing that is really a quality that's unique is a leader who really pays attention to what people do really well, and then learns how to leverage that into a way in which they can help that person sort of exploit their best talent,
Mhm. Yep.
because there's a synergy that happens when someone does something really well and they're excelling and feeling a sense of achievement, but also, being able to, the art of being able to take what they do really well and fit that in to either a need the organization has or that particular team has. I call that building capabilities inside of a team. So to me, those are two things that really stick out that I see from really great leaders that sort of differentiates them from everybody else.
All right, great. And I'll tell you, these are three things that stood out there. Well, two, patience, right? The leader having the patience, and that patience is a fine line, because sometimes you need to pivot and execute really quickly on reacting to certain situation. The others, as you said, you have to let them learn, right? It's kind of like, we know at our age different than maybe we knew at 15 years old. But you know what? The mistakes we made at 15 was our journey to get where we are at this age. So you have to almost allow sometimes that trip and fall, as long as it's not catastrophic. And the other part of it is really looking at where the positive is in trying to correct the 10% where the individual might have areas of opportunity to grow or improve. Are we really leveraging the other 70 or 80 or 90% where that person really shines?